It's been about 3 months since that night at the restaurant, and I'm finally able to talk about what happened without bursting into tears. I never imagined I would experience something so humiliating, but I think sharing my story might help others going through similar situations. My ex-boyfriend Brian and I had been dating for 8 months. We met through mutual friends at a housewarming party for my friend Sophie. I wasn't even planning to go that night. I had a headache and wanted to stay home, but Sophie insisted because she was trying to introduce me to new people. I'd been single for about a year after ending a 4-year relationship with my college boyfriend. I remember walking into Sophie's apartment and immediately noticing Brian. He was tall with dark hair and this confident smile that made him stand out in the crowd. He was talking with a group of people, gesturing with his hands as he told some story that had everyone laughing. Sophie introduced us about an hour into the party. Brian was charming and attentive for the rest of the night. He asked questions about my job in healthcare administration, laughed at my jokes, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. At the end of the evening, he asked for my number. Our first date was the following weekend, dinner at a casual Italian place followed by drinks at a nearby bar. The conversation flowed easily, and I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't with other first dates. By the end of the night, I was already thinking about seeing him again. And so it began. We started dating regularly, dinners, movies, hikes on the weekends. About 2 months in, we became officials, when he asked me to be his girlfriend after a concert we attended. My day couldn't get any better. Looking back, there were warning signs I completely overlooked. Brian would get oddly quiet whenever we'd hang out with my friends. He'd be charming and talkative with them, then moody on the drive home. He was also weirdly competitive about appearances. He'd point out couples in public and ask if I thought the guy could do better, or if the girl was out of his league. He seemed fixated on the idea that relationships had to be balanced in terms of attractiveness. I thought it was just a strange conversation habit, not realizing it was a window into how he actually viewed our relationship. There was also his social media behavior. Brian was constantly following fitness models and actresses on Instagram. His explore page was just an endless scroll of perfectly toned women. When I casually mentioned it once, he got defensive and said it was just appreciation of aesthetics, and accused me of being insecure. The incident with my friend Rachel's wedding photo should have been another clue. Rachel got married about 5 months into my relationship with Brian, and when she posted her wedding album online, Brian scrolled through it while we were having dinner at my place. "Your friend group is interesting," he said, still looking at the photos. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Just that there's such a range. Like, Rachel is obviously the hot one. Then there's Claire, who's cute in that girl next door way. Sophie's got a great body, but her face is just okay." I was uncomfortable with him ranking my friends like that. "They're all beautiful in different ways," I said. He looked up at me with this strange expression. "That's such a woman thing to say. Everyone knows some people are objectively more attractive than others." When I asked where I fell in his ranking of my friends, he laughed and changed the subject. That should have been a huge red flag. Then there was the way he'd helped me with my appearance. He'd send me links to workout routines I might enjoy, or mention casually that a certain hairstyle would suit my face shape better. When we'd get ready to go out, he'd sometimes suggest different outfits or makeup looks, just trying to help you look your best. At first, I took it as interest in me, maybe even flattering in a way. But over time, the comments accumulated, creating this constant undercurrent of, "You're not quite good enough as you are." Despite these warning signs, things seemed to be progressing well between us. Around the 6-month mark, Brian suggested we start leaving some things at each other's places. I cleared a drawer for him in my dresser. He made space in his bathroom cabinet for me. We had met each other's friends, though not family yet. His parents lived across the country, and mine were about 3 hours away. We had plans to visit my parents the following month. We'd even started casually talking about future plans, trips we wanted to take together, events coming up in the next year. I was falling in love with him. I hadn't said it yet, but I was close. There were moments when I thought he might be feeling the same way, the way he'd look at me sometimes, or how he'd reach for my hand when we were walking. It wasn't perfect, but what relationship is? I thought we were building something real. Then came the night at the restaurant. Brian suggested we go to this nice place downtown for dinner. It was the kind of restaurant that was a bit out of our usual budget, so I thought maybe he was planning something special, perhaps taking our relationship to the next level. I wore my favorite dress and spent a little more time on my hair and makeup than I usually would for a dinner out. When Brian picked me up, he seemed distracted. He barely greeted me, which was unusual. During the drive, he was quiet, checking his phone at red lights and not really engaging in conversation. I figured he was stressed about work or something. "Everything okay?" I asked as we neared the restaurant. "Yeah, fine," he said, not elaborating. We got to the restaurant and were seated at a nice table. Brian immediately ordered an expensive bottle of wine without asking what I wanted. As the waiter poured our drinks, I noticed Brian scanning the room, his eyes lingering on a group of women at the bar area. I tried to start conversations about various topics, a work project I was excited about, plans for the weekend, even brought up ideas for the trip to visit my parents. His responses were short, distracted. He kept checking his phone under the table, thinking I wouldn't notice. "So the reservation for the rental car is all set for our trip to see my parents," I said, trying again to engage him. I got that SUV you suggested. He responded, barely looking up from the menu. After we ordered food, I finally asked if something was wrong. You seem really distant tonight. Is everything okay? He put his phone down and looked at me directly for what felt like the first time that evening. Look, I've been thinking about this for a while and I don't think this is working anymore, he said. I felt like someone had dumped ice water on me. What? Where's this coming from? I thought things were good between us. They were okay, but I just think... I don't know how to say this nicely, but I think I need to be with someone who puts more effort into their appearance. I was stunned. Excuse me? What are you talking about? He waved his hand dismissively. You know what I mean. I work hard to stay in shape and look good. I need someone who does the same. You could be attractive if you tried, but you just don't seem to care. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious right now? You're breaking up with me because you don't think I'm attractive enough. It's not just that, he said, lowering his voice as if he was saying something reasonable. It's about compatibility. I take care of myself. I put in the work. I need someone who matches that energy, someone who turns heads when we walk into a room. So I'm too ugly to be your girlfriend? I said, my voice cracking as tears threatened to spill. He had the audacity to look offended. I didn't say ugly. Don't put words in my mouth. I just think you could do better, and I deserve someone who wants to do better. Our food arrived at that moment. I had no appetite whatsoever, but Brian immediately started eating his steak as if we were having a normal conversation about the weather. So you decided to dump me at dinner? I asked, still trying to process what was happening. He chewed thoughtfully. I didn't plan it this way. It just felt like the right time to be honest with you. I've been thinking about this for weeks and I can't keep pretending anymore. I sat there, food untouched, fighting back tears. The restaurant was crowded, and I didn't want to make a scene. Brian continued eating, occasionally checking his phone. Then came the final blow. Actually, he said, looking at his phone, some of my gym friends are meeting up at that new bar on 6th Street. I think I'm going to head over there after this. You're going to break up with me and then go to a bar with your friends? Well, there's no point in both of us having a bad night, right? He shrugged. Plus, Megan's going to be there. Megan, one of his gym friends he'd mentioned a few times, always with a little too much enthusiasm. Suddenly things clicked into place. You're leaving me to go meet another girl? I said flatly. It's not like that. She's just a friend. But, he hesitated, she's more my type physically. We have more in common. I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They streamed down my face. Don't cry here, people are watching. Look, I'll pay for dinner. We can still be friends if you want. He flagged down the waiter and asked for the check. While waiting, he started texting again, smiling at his phone. The waiter brought the check, and Brian paid with his credit card. As soon as he signed the receipt, he stood up. So, I'm gonna head out. I was in such shock that I could barely speak. You're just going to leave me here? How am I supposed to get home? I had ridden with him to the restaurant, which was about 20 minutes from my apartment. He shrugged again. You can call an Uber, or a friend. I figured you'd want some alone time anyway. He actually seemed to believe he was being considerate. And then he left, walked right out of the restaurant, leaving me sitting alone at the table with my untouched food and tear-streaked face. I sat there for probably 10 minutes trying to compose myself. The waiter came by and quietly asked if I was okay and if I wanted to box up my food. His kindness made me cry more. I declined the food but accepted the glass of water he brought. Eventually, I called my best friend Kim. Through tears, I explained what happened, and she immediately said she was coming to get me. While waiting, I went to the bathroom to try to fix my makeup and gather my dignity. When I looked in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. My eyes were red and puffy, mascara streaked down my cheeks. But beyond the obvious signs of crying, there was something else, a look of complete shock and confusion. How had I spent 8 months with someone who could discard me so easily? When Kim arrived, she had our other friend Ashley with her. They found me at the table and immediately hugged me. They took me back to Kim's apartment, opened a bottle of wine, ordered ice cream delivery, and let me cry and rant for hours. They stayed with me that night, making sure I wasn't alone. I can't believe he said those things to you, Kim kept saying, her face a mixture of shock and anger. What kind of person does that? Ashley, always the pragmatic one, was already planning. We need to get your stuff from his place, and you need to block him everywhere. This guy is toxic. The next day, Brian texted me, Hope you got home okay. I think you'll see this breakup is for the best once you calm down. I left some of your stuff in a bag on your porch. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked his number and on all social media. I also sent a brief message to our mutual friends explaining that we had broken up and that I needed some space from any events he might attend. When I got home, there was indeed a plastic bag on my porch containing the few items I'd left at his place: a toothbrush, a phone charger, a sweater, and a half-used bottle of perfume, like he was erasing any evidence I'd ever been in his life. The aftermath was hard. My self-esteem, which had never been super high to begin with, was shattered. I kept looking in the mirror, wondering what was so wrong with me that the man I loved could discard me so cruelly. Sleep became difficult. I'd lie awake replaying our relationship, looking for signs I missed. During the day, I'd catch myself avoiding my reflection in store windows or taking extra time to get ready, Brian's words echoing in my head. You could be attractive if you tried. 2 weeks after the breakup, I was getting coffee when I saw Brian with a tall, extremely fit blonde woman I assumed was Megan. They were holding hands and didn't notice me. I ducked out before they could see me and cried all the way home. I called Kim, barely able to speak through tears. He's already with someone else. They were holding hands. She's exactly his type. Blonde, fit, pretty. Listen to me, Kim said firmly. This is not about you not being good enough. This is about him being shallow and awful. You dodged a bullet. But it didn't feel that way. It felt like rejection in the most personal way possible, being told I wasn't attractive enough to love. The lowest point came about 3 weeks after the breakup. I was invited to a birthday dinner for a mutual friend, knowing Brian might be there. I spent hours getting ready, determined to look my best in case I saw him. I researched makeup techniques, wore my most flattering outfit, even got a blowout at a salon. I arrived at the restaurant feeling confident, but that confidence in the Uber home, I realized what had happened. I had tried to prove Brian wrong, to show him I could be attractive if I tried. And in doing so, I had accepted his warped premise that my worth was tied to my appearance. That night was a turning point. I deleted the dating apps I'd downloaded in a desperate attempt to feel wanted again. I threw away the makeup tutorials I'd printed out. I stopped weighing myself every morning. But then something unexpected happened. Our mutual friend Jake reached out to me. He wanted to check how I was doing, and we ended up meeting for lunch. During our conversation, he revealed that Brian had been talking to Megan for months before our breakup. They met at the gym and had been workout partners. But Jake suspected it was more than that. I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure and I didn't want to cause problems, Jake explained. But the way he left you at the restaurant was messed up. Everyone thinks so. It hurt to have my suspicions confirmed, but it was also validating to know I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. You know, Brian's done this before, Jake added cautiously. His ex before you, he told everyone they grew apart and that's why they broke up, but she was just a normal person who didn't make the gym her whole personality. That revelation was like a light bulb moment. This wasn't about me not being attractive. This was Brian's pattern. He viewed his partner as a trophy that needed to match his self-image. Over the next month, more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Sophie, the friend who had introduced us, came by my apartment with wine and an apology. I feel terrible for setting you up with him, she said. Mike told me about some comments Brian makes at work about women. If I'd known, I never would have introduced you. What kind of comments? I asked. Sophie looked uncomfortable. He rates women around the office on a scale of 1-10. He talks about which female clients he would or wouldn't sleep with. Mike's tried to shut it down, but Brian just laughs it off as guy talk. Each of these revelations helped me see that Brian's treatment of me wasn't a reflection of my worth, but of his character. Over the next month, I leaned heavily on my friends. Kim and Ashley convinced me to join their twice-weekly yoga class, not talk look better, but because it might help my mental health. Jake invited me to group hangouts where, notably, Brian was not invited. Slowly, I started feeling like myself again. I also started seeing a therapist who helped me recognize the subtle ways Brian had been undermining my confidence throughout our relationship. All those helpful suggestions about my appearance were actually him trying to mold me into his ideal rather than accepting me as I was. What you experienced was a form of emotional abuse, my therapist explained. Over time, his comments were designed to make you feel insecure and grateful for his attention, like you didn't deserve him. It's a control tactic. I made lists of my strengths that had nothing to do with appearance. I practiced giving and receiving compliments that weren't about looks. I learned to recognize when my inner voice was actually Brian's voice, criticizing me, and how to counter it. I also reconnected with hobbies I had neglected during my relationship with Brian: painting, hiking with a local group, taking a cooking class. I remembered that I was a whole person before Brian, with interests and talents and value beyond being someone's girlfriend. Thank you all for the comments. You guys have been really supporting. It's been 3 months now. I still have bad days where I question my worth or attractiveness, but they're becoming less frequent. The hurt is still there, but it's dulled from a sharp pain to a tender bruise. Last week, I ran into Brian's best friend at the grocery store. He awkwardly told me that Brian and Megan had already broken up. Apparently, she too wasn't meeting his standards in some way. I didn't feel the satisfaction I might have expected. I just felt sorry for her. 2 days ago, I received a text from Brian from a new number, since I had blocked his old one. Hey, been thinking about you. Made a mistake. Want to talk? I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I'm not ready to date again yet, but for the first time since that horrible dinner, I feel like I will be someday. And when I do, I'll be looking for someone who values me for who I am, not for who they want to transform me into. I still think about that night at the restaurant sometimes. Maybe I needed to learn what I would and wouldn't accept in a relationship. Thank you all again for your kindness and support. It means more than you know.